Welcome to the Table Talk podcast. You know we saved you a seat. Join in on honest, real-life conversations about being a Christian in today's world. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, what's up? It is T, and we are back with our final episode of this season of the Table Talk podcast. Of course, I got my co-host Q. In the building. Yes, and we're ending this season with a bang, and I want to introduce to you our special guest, Marty McDonald, the one and only.
Oh, not the one and only. And not on the final episode. Did not know all the details.
You hear now.
Yeah.
Marty, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do for the people that may not know.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you guys both for having me on. I'm Marty McDonald. I'm the CEO and founder of Boss Women Media. Boss Women Media is an offline, online women's empowerment community and media company, and we create experiences for women to connect. And then I'm also another CEO of another company called El Olivia, which is around Black little girls immersing themselves in a lifestyle experience of big possibility for everyday life. And it's an apparel company.
Wow.
Doing big things.
Yeah.
Big things. Did you always know kind of that you were going to be a leader or you were going to be running something? Was that who you were as a young girl?
You know, to be honest, I wouldn't even have described myself as a leader, right? I just knew that I enabled traits where I wanted people to learn and to grow and to be more. Like, I was that kid who would like have all the neighborhood kids over, and I was the teacher, and I would sit them on the floor and I would teach, right? Like, that's who I innately am. I'm one of those people who, like, if I'm growing, you got to be growing too to come alongside me. If I'm eating, know that you're going to eat too, right? Like, I just believe that there's so much for all of us to have, and life is about so much more than us just living day to day. It's about us living innately in what God wants our desires to be. And so I try to embody and live that out through what I do. But it took a really long time for me to get to that spot, to believe and to know that there's so much more than just existing in life.
Whew, that's real.
Yeah, that's why I got to get out of teaching. Right there. Yeah, it's one thing when you live a purpose life versus just existing. You talk about living. That's what this thing is about. So glad to have you, Marty.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
There's so many people that when we get kind of lost or in a rut, we just have this mindset that that's the place we have to stay, right?
Yeah.
And that's all that we have. And we sometimes forget, like, who we serve and who God is. Can you talk to us a little bit just about your journey with God and how he kind of had to shift you in maybe some areas to open your mind to the possibilities of what he could do in your life?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've had a very interesting relationship with God. I will say I've always had a relationship with God. I got baptized when I was 7. I grew up in the church that my grandfather built, you know, but I didn't understand who God was or what God could do until I was about to go off to college. And I remember having this Bible. It was like a study Bible, like a study student life Bible. And I remember writing down what I wanted to accomplish. I was like, I want to go to college. I want to get a scholarship. I want a car when I go to college, like really being specific. And then looking back when I got to college and seeing that those things actually happen. And I thought, wow, God, like, you made that happen for me, right? And then getting to college, bibbity bopping, doing other things that, you know. And right. And but thinking, always like going back to that space of being clear on what I ask God. And it just comes to, it reminds me around God will give you the desires of your heart, right? But if he says that, then believe that he's going to come through with them, right? And so just that being a foundation for me, to be honest, and have been able to see that through in various aspects of just life. And not because it's been easy, because it hasn't. And my relationship with God has been very roller coaster ride, right? On some moments, I have completely felt like, God, are you there? Do I hear you? Are you present? And in other moments, feeling like this is my favorite season, right? Like, and let me go operate and be who he says that I can be.
So how do you still serve a limitless God when you're having those feelings of doubt or can I even do this? Like, how do you still push through that?
Let me tell you, I did not know how limitless God was until after I had my child.
Okay.
Me and my husband had been trying to get pregnant for some time. We've been married for 12 years. I know I got married when I was 12. No, but we had really been trying to have a baby, and I had 2 miscarriages. And then I get pregnant in the pandemic. And it was such an interesting time to be pregnant in solitude, where you couldn't even share this celebration with people, right? Like, you couldn't be around people. It was the most isolating, best news I've ever experienced. Wow. And midway through my pregnancy, my brother was murdered. And it really shifted a lot of things. I think it transformed our family. Like, he was robbed and murdered. And 2 weeks after his murder, I go to the to my doctor's appointment. Meanwhile, I can't go with my husband because you can't bring your husband to doctor's appointments when you're pregnant. Like, everything changes because of COVID, right? I didn't even hug my mom at his funeral because of COVID. Like, we lived in this world where it just felt so stifling and so like, you're gonna get this thing and then die. You know, like, that's what it just felt so heavy. And so I go to the to our doctor's appointment, and my OBGYN is like, something's not right. I see something. And she was like, I need you to go and see a specialist. It looks like she has a hernia. And I'm like, a hernia? Like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. And she was using all these words that I was not even familiar with. And I was just like, wait, like, this is way too much. My husband's not here. I need to call somebody. I just experienced this tragic death in my family. And we go to a specialist, and they're like, your baby has a disease called congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And it's 1 out of 30,000 people who get it. And I'm like, God, well, first of all, we've been trying to have a kid. And then we get this, and then you do this. You talk about somebody who's like wanting to blame God, who's like just upset. Yeah. And I'll never forget the day. I'll come back to where it make it make sense. So I get home from the doctor's office that day, and someone, this company had reached out to me and was like, hey, you're going to be a finalist for this pitch competition that we're doing. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I do not want to get on this call. Like, I've just had the worst day ever. I was like, I'm just going to get on anyways. Mm-hmm. And it's always like that little inkling of obedience that makes you do it anyways, right? And so I get on the call, and the lady goes, actually, you're not a finalist. You won $30,000 for your business.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, what? Like, I won. So the worst thing that could happen to me today, and then one of the best things that could happen for my business. Yeah. And it's crazy because so we find out that when Elle is born, she's going to have a surgery. And I had to change my whole birth plan. I couldn't have her at Baylor. Now I had to have her at Parkland. That was like a humbling experience to have her at a county hospital, right? When I had this perfect birth plan. And now she's going to have a surgery as soon as she's born. So I may not even be able to hold my baby when she comes out of my womb, right? And all of these doctors and all of these specialists and and they're just saying, and so I remember telling my husband, I said, hey, I don't want to tell anyone. I don't want to tell anyone. We're going to tell 3 people. I told Pastor Carter, I told Stephanie, and we told someone else. And I just want them to pray for her because she might not make it. Like, she might not survive this. And I go back into this isolating feeling. I remember my baby shower, and it just felt like I couldn't really celebrate, and I had this burden and this secret that I was hiding that was, my child has this thing, and we are just praying that she makes it. And so the day I gave birth to her, we're in the NICU for 35 days. We get a bill in the mail for being in the NICU. It's $32,000. I said, God, that is so crazy. The day I find out is the day you give us $30,000 to pay for this. Wow. Everything after Elle was born changed my relationship with God permanently. God, if you do nothing else, you let us have this little girl. But not only did you let us have her, she beat all the odds. Yeah. And that was my moment when I personally realized that we serve a limitless God, and it's on our mindset to know what he can do and to continue to speak it and believe it.
Yeah.
Wow. Whew. I'm over here like, whew.
Yeah.
But that unbelief in those seasons is real.
Mm-hmm.
Is real. And I think we have to equip ourselves sometimes in a way that we're going into a battle to really push past what's in our head that tells us I'm only worth this, or I can only have this, or this is what I'm used to. So I should be grateful, but I don't really want to rock the boat because I'm maybe comfortable, or I don't really feel confident enough to go after anything else. So God, I might just stay here and just because I'm not really sure you want to do it for me, or I'm not really sure it's going to happen for me, or I'm going through this hard thing. So let me just make it through, right?
Yeah.
So how do you really equip yourself and talk to yourself to work through that voice in your head that's like, you don't deserve that, or he's not going to do that for you, or yeah, it's happening for other people, but not for you.
Yeah. I have really had to equip myself with a toolbox of different things that I can personally go to that allows me to feel connected to God. So sometimes I send God a text message. I have this little text thread. It's to my cell phone. It says Marty plus God. And I just write out things that I am going through, or I'm thinking, or that I feel. And I send the text message, and then it'll respond back, it's read. And I feel like me and God has communed in some way, and he left me on read, right? And he knows right then and there. But then also, post just becoming a mom, I've had to master a morning routine. What do I want my first thing to be in the morning that I do and that I say and that I speak? And it's not, I want somebody to scream my name or go get them breakfast, right? I want to be equipped in how I'm going to combat this day, because this world will kick your butt. It's hard out here. It's hard out here being a black woman. It's hard out here being a business owner. It's hard out here being a black Christian when the world is telling you so many other things to do and to be. And so when I wake up in the morning, I read a devotional, and then I set my intention for the day. What is it that I'm expecting out of this day? I think that we sometimes don't give enough credit to what the Bible says, what the Word says. Yeah. The Word says to equip yourself, right? To put on an armor, right? And so if it's telling me that, why am I not taking heed to that, right? So I'll put out my intentions. Today, my intention was, God, I want to walk in gratitude and presence. Be present in today. Be present in this conversation and not think about the other 30,000 things that I got going on, because I got a whole bunch of other things going on, and I cannot be present. Then I can lose this moment, right? And then how do I want to show up for myself? How do I want to show up for my kid? How do I want to show up for my husband, right? It's all a part of me equipping myself to say, hey, I'm worthy of these things. Yep. And then on top of, after I do that, after I set my intentions for the day, I'm clear on what my prayer is. Yeah. Sometimes we're afraid to say it out loud. Like we're ashamed to say what we really want. I was talking to a friend last night, and I'm like, girl, what is it that you really want though? She's like, well, I want to be a household name, and but I don't want to do. And I'm like, but you want to be a household name, so say that out loud. If that's what your desire is, and I believe our desires come from God, right? From the perspective of operating in purpose, and that's how we find purpose. Then you have to state it out loud so that, number one, you're putting it in the atmosphere that that's what you want, and that's what's going to come back to you. Is it going to be easy? No. But you're clear on what you're working towards through it. So for that person who may be listening, who's like, I'm not good enough, I don't think I can have it, I just want to reassure you of the God that we serve, who is full of abundance and has said that he wants you to live abundantly, right? Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard all that is in store for those who love the Lord. Like all of the words that he tells us is for you. You got to start operating like they really for you and speak them back to yourself. But like I said, I really don't believe I understood that until I had our NICU experience, because then I saw God really do a miraculous work on something that I had no control over at all. And it was all up to him, and he showed up for me. And I will forever tell that story. I will forever give him the glory for it, because that's what he did.
Yeah, I find that I have to I have to pray, Lord, help me in my unbelief. Because it's not really if you can do it, is if I believe that you can do it. And do I walk in that, and do my actions and what I say to myself reflect that I actually believe and have faith that you can do it. And a lot of the times we build that through those moments where we can't lean on nothing else but God. And he's shown himself to us in such a way that's like, oh yeah, you got me. You got me. And if you had me then, you got me this time. And if you did it before, okay, you'll do it again. And you can do it in a different way. And I've been in a space where I'm like, Lord, sometimes I don't even know what I want, but I know I want what you want for me. Because sometimes what I can think about, it's not even big enough, right? Like, I know what you placed in me. I know the gifts and talents, but I really don't even know if I could think up all that you could do through me. So, Lord, just use me. Use me, and I want to believe in whatever you put in front of me, I can do and I can operate in that.
You know, I think one of the best prayers you can pray is, I know what I think I need, but you know what I need. Give me that. I know what I think I want, but you know deep down what I really want. Give me that, you know? So, like, listen to you talk, even about the tragedy. We are people that we don't want nothing bad to happen, right? We want everything to go smooth, no issues, no problems. Just let me ride the teacup ride to Disneyland and everything just great, right? But through tragedies where growth happens. Through misfortunes where you go from faith to faith, like the Bible talks about, right? We gotta start not loving the tragedy, but rejoicing in the tribulation, understand that that's where our growth really comes from. So that's dope to hear your story.
That is where our growth comes from. And then, like, I think that someone, like, there's a Maverick City song that says this, like, around his promises, right? And, like, how he doesn't change his mind about what his promises never change, right? And it's like, but they're going to change for me. Like, God, you really not going to do that for me, like, you know. And he's like, but my promises, they don't change their mind, like they're concrete. And so how have you been speaking God's promises into your life? Because they're real, and he's done it for hundreds of thousands of people before you. So why don't you think that he will do that for you?
So there's different types of faith, right?
Most
of us have faith in God, but the problem is, do you have faith in God in you, right? Like, we believe what he can do. Yeah, he can walk on water. He can heal the sick, but that's faith in him. We got to grow to a point where we have faith in him, in us. I think that's where that life switch changes.
Yeah, that's good.
I was reading my Bible study this weekend. They talked about these unconditional and conditional promises. So promises that are unconditional. It's like God's going to do this regardless of what you do. But then you have some conditional things where God is calling you to do something, and that unlocks that promise. Yeah. So some of us may even be blocking our promises because we haven't done our part. Faith without works is dead. Yeah. So I'm just encouraging people, like, do your part. Do your part. God, he got his stuff ready.
Yeah. Right. He's just waiting on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, Marty, that God had you in a season of isolation. And my therapist called it kind of an incubation season. And I think it was intentional, too, because sometimes, well, in my seasons of incubation has been intentional because sometimes the people around us can also be a part of us having a limited mindset about what God can do. Have y'all ever experienced that where you're trying to walk in more, a season of abundance, but people around you are just stifling that? Yeah. And every time you talk to them, it's like, man, you, not only are you want to stay where you are, but you also are trying to keep me there. Have y'all experienced that? And how you shake that off? I even
had a partner of mine who, a buddy of his got real sick, right? Like ICU type sick. He only told a few people. I said, well, what's the reason? I don't need their disbelief to affect this dude. I'm only even going to share this with people who I know got faith, who can get him out of there. I don't want to hear the bad story about the what if. We know what could happen. I don't even want to hear that, right? So I think, a bigger problem, like along the lines of what you were saying is, I think we try to address problems too much when there is a problem, okay? The Bible talks about building your house on that sand, right? I think we do that so often. If we surround ourselves with the right people, when tragedy hits, we don't have to try to weave and maneuver, right?
That's good.
But then we have too much foolishness around us during good times. It's not until the bad times that we recognize it.
You be like, wait a
minute, for real.
Yeah, so I think if we spent more time kind of removing some of that, doing the good times, kind of doing that pruning. Right now, I have 2 people that have been, I guess, a part of my life that have voluntarily walked away. And I have voluntarily let them.
Release.
Right? Misunderstandings that necessarily don't have to be that big. But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, God is trying to prepare me for something. I don't need that around me.
Yeah.
But I think as people so often, because they've been around 5 years, because they've been around 10 years, we try to hold on to them. Nah, your season's over, bro. And we got to keep it pushing.
That's it.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's powerful. I think that, strength builds strength. Like, weaknesses builds weaknesses, right? Like, you got to call a spade, right? If I'm hanging around naysayers, then you know what I'm going to be? I'm going to be a naysayer. I'm not going to believe. Entrepreneurship is the most lonely job that you could ever have, because don't nobody believe you until the world believe you, right? Like, ain't nobody gonna believe you gonna be a success until you got the validation and the credibility from everybody else, who, by the way, everybody else's are strangers. Yeah. Then that's when the people
closest to you
believe you and will buy into you. So I give birth to a baby, right? She goes into a NICU. 3 days later, she has the surgery to basically take her spleen, her liver, and her intestines down from her chest back into its right positioning, and so that her lungs can function and she can breathe on her own. On that 3rd day, I get, I'm supposed to pitch this really big company. And I was like, I'm not going to do the pitch. The pitch isn't, I'm so worried about her. And my husband was like, no, just go do the pitch. It'll take your mind off of everything that we have going on. I do the pitch. It goes incredibly well. Probably about 45 days later, I found out I got this deal. Yeah. And the deal was from Amazon, that they were going to sponsor Black Girl Magic, this really big digital summit that I do every year. And I was the first company that they've ever partnered with on this initiative that they have, which is like $150 million fund for Black-owned businesses. Wow. And you talk about just continuing to dream, right? Okay, well, that happened. So then how do I continue to dream bigger from here, right? Like, what do my dreams look like from here, right? Yeah. But when you're around people that give you space to dream, that is the most inspirational and empowering thing that you could ever have. It's someone who will say, girl, if you got $1 million, you get $10 million. If you got 10, you can get 20. If you got 20, you can get 100. Yeah. Like, just people, and it's not a lot of people normally. Normally it's 2-3 people
if that,
who you can do that with, right?
Yeah.
But I think that you being able to have that safe space with people there's no value to that from anyone, right? Yeah. And so God just allows me to continue to see who he is and what he can do even in the darkest hours.
Yeah.
It's heavy, ain't it?
Yeah. It's good stuff, and it has given me a lot to think about. Yeah. Just in terms of my mindset, just around what God can do when we are obedient and we have faith and belief in him and who our God is, and not who we are, but who he is and who we are through him. And I'm inspired. And I hope that the people listening, you take inventory of what do I believe about God?
Yeah.
What is my view of God? Do I see him as just someone who I talk to and, meet my basic needs, which he does, and he can do and he will do. But what more does he have for me? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be material things.
Not at all.
What more does he have for me in terms of my health, my mental stability, my clarity, my peace, my confidence, who he calls me to be? And I'm challenging us all to walk into our abundant season.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is letting go of the how. Yes. I think as people, we try to wrap God into a how, when his how might not be our how, The children of Israel could not see it's going to be fine. You just open that sea up and then we good. You can't see that, So letting go of what you think the method is and just believe in God and leave it at that. So,
yeah.
And he will direct your path. You get aligned with him, stuff start opening up, doors start opening up. You're like, where did this even come from? I don't even know you, and you want to do this for me? Right. He'll put the pieces together, and thank God we don't have to figure out the path. We just have to follow it and be obedient to what he's called us to do.
Just be obedient. Yeah. I have stories for days like that where I'm like, wait, who, what, why, how? Yeah. And it's like, and you're limiting me in just this. Imagine what I could do if you don't send an email. Don't try to control the situation, right? Like, just allow me to be who I told you I am.
Yeah. Y'all, season coming to an end, and I think we're ending it on a high note. Go back, watch previous episodes if you haven't already. We're going to miss y'all, but don't worry. It won't be too long. Enjoy the holidays. Q, got anything for the folks?
I just hope they bring me back for season 2.
We'll be interviewing Q, see if he's... No. We love y'all. Thanks again for tuning in to the Table Talk Podcast. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Table Talk Podcast, presented by the Concord Church Young Adults. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, in addition to following us on Instagram at Concord Young Adults.